We're streaming live on YouTube, Chair.
Thank you, Ed, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Cabinet meeting. We'll get straight into the agenda with apologies for absence. I've advised we've had apologies for absence from Councillor Hill. I think that's all the apologies. Is that correct, everybody? Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. We've some minutes to look at from the previous meeting. If I can just direct your attention back to those minutes, which is of our meeting on the 10th of June. Does anybody have any queries, suggestions, corrections, anything of that sort for the minutes?
Propose they be approved, Chair.
Thank you very much, Phil. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We have no intention this evening to hold any part of the meeting in private. I'm not aware, John, I'll just absolutely confirm this with you, Ed, but I don't think we have any public addresses or deputations, do we?
That's correct, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ed. Item 5 is declarations of interest. Does any member of the Cabinet have any declaration of interest they'd wish to make on any item on the agenda? I think we're all clear on that. No, can't see any signals. That's good. Okay. And we've no issues this evening arising from overview and scrutiny committees to consider. So our first item then is item 7, which is with Brandon. This is finance monitoring for the 31st of May and an update on the impact from COVID-19, following which, once Brandon's introduced that, we do have one speaker, which is Councillor Stone. Brandon, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just bringing the report to the Cabinet this evening. The last one was a couple of months ago in May. I did say at the time that we might have an idea of how much the forecast overspend would be. At the moment, it's standing at 2.541 million, which is obviously a big amount of money for the council. But we still haven't had the full allocation in from the government yet to actually offset any of this this overspend. So at the moment, Chair, I can't give you a precise figure. I can give you indications of where we might be, but I don't really want to do that at the moment, Chair. I'd rather wait till August when we've called for the next meeting. So, as I said, the update appendix highlights some of the areas that have been impacted by COVID, either as a direct cost or as income pressures. I can advise that we will be bringing further report to the extra Cabinet in August, as I stated earlier. That will reflect the Q1 position as at the end of June 2020. This report will be more refined, and as we understand better and underlying cost pressures, and also the impact of recent government announcements on additional funding. The Corporate Management Board have also investigating further options to contain costs and mitigate the forecast overspend. In respect of the BIS grants, which is the grant pot that we were given from the government, which was the first strand of grants, we distributed 35.1 million, which was fantastic because the officers worked absolutely so hard to get all this out to all the businesses that were qualified for it. So far, it's 2,917 businesses that have benefited from the grants the government have given us. So hopefully that will go a long way to making sure they've got a secure future and they can continue business in Northampton, and with our help over the next few years, we can make sure they grow rapidly and make the town a prosperous place. We still have around 200 properties that might be eligible, and we continue to make progress in contacting them to advise the businesses occupying them that they may be eligible for assistance. So there is still some money out there, which I'm surprised at, to be honest with you, Chair, that this hasn't been snapped up yet. So I'm, if anybody's listening on YouTube tonight, or if anybody wants to start tweeting things, there is still around 200 properties out there that haven't applied, which could be entitled to up to £25,000, which would help them obviously in this difficult time. An item I would like to draw the attention to in the recommendation is 2.3. After long discussions with yourselves and how the Borough Council can actually start helping with community groups and smaller groups that we deal with on a weekly basis and daily basis, is the groups like the Scout groups, the BB, the Girls Brigade, church groups, community centres, user groups at community centres, to name a few. These sort of groups haven't been really given any money to help them through a difficult period. And this is the time of the year when they look at you holding a jumble sale or a fundraiser, which normally raises around between 250 to 600, 700 pounds. So what I'm proposing tonight with the Cabinet is that we increase the Council Community Fund by £2,000 starting at the end of July which will have to be spent by the end of October 2020. And I'll be myself and Councillor King will be discussing how the scheme will really work, and we'll refine the scheme to make sure everybody fully understands how it's going to work over a 3-month period. But this is the money there to help them sort of groups that I've mentioned already who don't qualify for any grants, who've missed out on their small fundraisers they normally do. But that is massive money for them sort of groups who keep them going for the rest of the year. So it's important that we don't forget them. And I'm pleased to say, as a borough, we can do that. And I will be taking the money out of reserves before anybody starts jumping up and down which officers are losing their jobs. Nobody's losing their jobs. This is to help our local communities that are at the rough end of everything, who don't qualify for any grants at all. And it's nice to give something back. And hopefully the councils will get out there and work with these groups to make sure they do benefit from the £500 or £600 they normally would raise from a bring and buy sale or jumble sale or a little small fundraising cake event, which we do in East Hunsbury as well. So I'm hopeful that will help to help the smaller groups within the town going forward over the next few months. And on top of that, Chair, there's not much else I need to add. I think Councillor Stone might have a few questions for me, which I'm quite happy to answer when she comes on. But I'm putting forward to you the recommendations from 2.1 to 2.3 tonight.
Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, and to Councillor Stone, thank you for putting forward some questions. I think I heard Brandon incorporate some of them in the comments that he made. Yeah. There might be other things outstanding. Did you separately, Councillor Stone, Danielle, did you separately want to come in and to speak, or we?
I would like to come in. I hope you found it helpful that I sent my questions in ahead of the meeting.
Yes, thank you.
The point I was trying to make is that I've read this report several times, and I just need the information to be presented in a different kind of way. I understand what Councillor Eldred was saying in terms of, we're still living in uncertain times and not everything is known or will be known. I do understand that, but I think it's the pattern of what is going on that I need to really understand. So I need to understand what revenue we've lost and what revenue we're going to get back, what revenue we're going to continue to leach. I need to understand where all the extra spend is, whether that's temporary or is it going to continue. It's things like that. I need more detail, and I need it in a form. You have to pity me. I don't understand all the narrative. I need it in a form which is easily understood. So in a table form would help me anyway. So that's the reason why I sent those questions in. And it's, I understand all the difficulties, but one of the other points I was making is that I am really seriously worried that through all the austerity years, our staff have managed absolutely extraordinarily well, but they've been cut to the bone. And I am very conscious that in these very difficult times, the stress level, however well the staff cope with that, it's very discernible to me. And I just think we've got a duty of care, and we need to think about, capacity issues and how we can support the staff with what they're having to do. So I wanted to make that really clear. I think, there is a huge difference between what we do and what we're obligated to do and what the government is expecting us to do. I am absolutely beside myself about the government coming up with a really good plan to keep the homeless off the street, but they're not helping to fund it adequately. I'm really concerned about that, and I think the job that the borough has done and the staff have done looking after the homeless is second to none. It's been absolutely brilliant, but we shouldn't be robbing our budget to do that. The government should have provided more money for it, and I hope that's part of the additional funding they're going to be coming up with. In terms of the funding for councillors, you might think I'm really pleased about that. Actually, I'm quite concerned about it, because I understand the argument and I understand there's lots of voluntary groups that need support, but I really like our equalities assessment of need that goes on through the small grants panel and the partnership funding. I think the borough does that extremely well. And because the emergency has been so impactful on lots of different groups, then I think that's the route that we should have gone down, a proper assessment of need and an allocation of funding. So I'm a bit bothered about how that's going to happen, because if you look at Castle, Semelong, the Eastern District, St David, you know, the need there is very, very great, very, very great. And I think if that additional funding was subject to a proper equalities impact assessment, it would be allocated in a different kind of way. So I've got a real concern about that. I'm also concerned that we've been given the cost in terms of how much additional funding councillors are going to have to spend with their community groups, but not the cost of providing it. So we know nothing comes free. There will be an additional cost in terms of staffing. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I-
Brandon, I sense you might want to
Yeah.
chip back in and comments as well.
Yes, please, Chair. Yeah, I mean, with regard to staff cuts, I mean, we haven't had any staff cuttage in our budget for the last 2 years. So we're not planning on doing that now between now and the end of the Borough Council's large span. And I've got no intention of that at all. And if staff is needed and there's departments that are under pressure, you know, our main concern is our staff. You know, without our staff, we have no Borough Council. And they're our key assets to the whole company. So if there is a need for extra help out there because staff are struggling, then I'm sure it'll go through the line management to us, and we'll discuss that at a later date. And I'll be more than happy to listen to it and see how I can support that out the financial side of things. With regard to giving people, each council, an extra £2,000, I mean, if you look at the small grants panel, they only meet so many times in a year. So the smaller groups could miss out completely. That's why we're empowering our councillors, because that's what's called a councillor empowerment fund, councillor community fund. So you can go out there because you know the communities better than anybody. If you're representing them correctly, you will know what they need and what they are short of at this time, and you'll be well in contact with them. So the emphasis is back on the councillors to help their communities. That's what they're voted to do, and that's why we're giving them their extra money so they can go out there and work with our smaller groups to make sure they've not been missed out under the current schemes that are in place. So this is an extra bonus. I don't think having it go to the small grants panel will help it, to be honest with you. Like I said, they only meet so many times a year, which then some groups could miss out. They're a fantastic group. They're up to £3,000. We're saying with the detail that's going to come out, you've got £2,000 between July and October to spend, and we'll bring out the smaller details towards the end of this month to make sure everybody's fully aware of how it's going to work. And we're looking at smaller pots, so you can't give away less than £250 at a time. So each group will actually benefit at least £250, if not more. And if one councillor in a ward like Councillor Stone has, they get an extra £6,000 in an award that really does need extra money going into that specific area. So I'm fully confident that it'll work well, and I'm fully confident the councillors will go out there and make sure their community groups that have suffered so badly over the last few months, and who will suffer over the summer period, that they will get the funding they need to help them survive over this difficult period. With regard to the budget stuff, Chair, again, you know, I've said in the report, this is up to May. There's lots of things happened from the end of May, and when we come back on August the 19th, I'll have a better idea, and hopefully from sound figures of what the actual impact to the borough will be. And if I can put it in a simple term, that is not a problem at all, because I prefer that way myself. So I know where the money's coming from and where it's going to and how much things cost. So that will be clear, and everybody will be able to understand that come the August the 19th meeting. I think that's every question answered there, Chair. I can't think of anything else, but come back to me, obviously, if you're not happy.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. The homelessness is an example where we've had a reasonably significant chunk of money now, I think, from the government, but there still is some more to chase, and that's actively ongoing. I don't know whether you're more familiar or Stephen. Stephen looks like he wants to chip in a moment, but I think we're hopeful that more will come through, but that's yet to be clarified. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, we have had a chunk. I mean, it's only just over 20,000, but there is more coming in. But again, I don't want to give a figure out at the moment in case I'm incorrect. But we just wait for all the final figures to come through. I'd rather give everybody the correct details rather than assume what it could be. Yeah,
that's fair enough. Stephen, were you going to comment there?
I was only going to say that I referred on Monday night to new strands of funding that had been disclosed by the government, and to reassure everybody, we will be applying for those too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Danielle. Anybody else have any other questions on this item? Questions or comments? Anna?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I couldn't find my own mute button there. So I am delighted with the 2.3 recommendation to award councillors an extra £2,000. As it covers and helps my area, community engagement and safety. I know we've been inundated. Some councillors in some wards have probably spent out all of their money for this year, and this is going to be really great to be able to support those other projects that we haven't been aware of up until now. Going forward, there's going to be more and more that are emerging. There already is daily. We've got different contacts that are coming to us looking for help. So I'm delighted with this. If any ward councillor does have an issue about where they can spend it, please contact me, contact the community engagement team. They all cover a zone of Northampton, and they will be there ready to support you and help you spend that money to get it to the right places. So thank you very much, Councillor Eldred.
No problem.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. Any further queries? I can't see any more hands, I don't think. Shout if you wanted to come in. No? Okay. In which case, if I may please, I direct your attention back, as Brandon said, to the recommendations at section 2. Can I just ask you to confirm your agreement to the recommendations?
Chair, can I just say just a quick word to everybody before we
Of course, yes, of course.
accept it? I just want to say thank you to you, Leader, and the rest of the Cabinet for their support over the last few months, especially with the financial team, because we've obviously things have been a bit stressful for our team, and they've really dealt with it well. And I really want to, send my thanks to everybody, yourself and the Cabinet, for supporting me and the group for everything they've done over the last few months. It's been tremendous effort, and I don't think people don't realise how much work is going on behind the scenes, especially from you, Leader, and to making sure everything is on the straight and narrow.
Well, that's very kind of you, but certainly let me echo the bit you said about amongst all of our departments. I know that finance people have had a huge job in a period of uncertainty, the grants and so on. We're very proud of the whole council's response, as we've expressed. But no, thank you. That's kind. I think, it's been excellent to see the response that's come from all areas, people in the borough. Very proud indeed. Thank you. Thank you, Stuart, as well. Very good. In which case, then, I may just ask you again, if you would please, to confirm your agreement to the recommendations in section 2 of the report. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Jolly good. Thank you very much indeed. That takes us on to item 8, which is with Stephen. Once Stephen's introduced the report, we do have Councillor Smith, who I think wants to speak on this. And item 8 is the private sector housing assistance policy. So over to you, first of all, Stephen, to highlight any relevant points.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report is to approve an updated private sector housing assistance policy, which takes into account government guidance, case law, the introduction of new legislation and changes to existing legislation. And the policy does do all that. But the thrust of this report really is to approve charges that can be imposed by our homes adaptation team, which would come out of the grant. They would be added to the grant, not, I need to stress that, not paid by the applicant. And also significantly to introduce a raft of discretionary grants to run alongside the mandatory grants, all coming out of the Government Better Care Fund. Discretionary grants allow for more flexibility and to provide a broader range of financial assistance to the private sector. And you can see the different types of discretionary grants on pages 22 and 23 of the Cabinet papers, or if you like, page 2 and 3 of Appendix A in the bundle. And these are top-up grants and resettlement grants. Interestingly, hospital discharge grants, dementia-friendly home grants, special purpose grants. I have with me today Chris Stopford, who's the private sector housing manager, and I'm sure he'll help me out with any questions that come along that I can't deal with. So I'd really refer you to recommendations at 2.1, and that's what I hope we're going to agree.
Very good. Thank you, Stephen. I think my internet slightly dropped out there for a second, but I think I'm back with you. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Let's we'll move next to our speaker, Councillor Smith, and then see if there's any other points that we want to raise, either with yourself, Stephen, or perhaps with Chris, as he's with us. Zoe, Councillor Smith, over to you.
Well, thank you. I think this is really important in terms of making sure that this is that the support is available for particularly clients of MPH with disabilities and tenants with disabilities, and making sure that they've got the support available to them. And also very pleased to see the bit about the hospital discharge, because this is something that came up in the adult social care scrutiny panel that I chaired, where we were looking at how to best support people who are coming out of hospital and make sure that they're able to return to their own homes. So I think this is something really important. I think it's going to be the case that communication between agencies is going to be absolutely vital to making sure that this succeeds and that everybody accesses this who needs to access it. So it's something else that we're going to have to really make sure is embedded at the heart of the West Northants policy sort of authority, that we have this communication between agencies and that people are aware who needs that kind of support and who might need to access it. And then just off the back of that, can we make sure that this scheme is really well communicated so that people who might need to use it and their carers are aware what the options are, and that we give sufficient support to make sure it's easy for people to complete their applications, and then for them to understand why they are and not eligible for this support just off the back of it. But overall, I think it's a really important scheme.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Zoe, thank you. Stephen, were there any comments you wanted to sort of respond to there or pick up on?
Just one quite important point is that to clarify that NPH have their own separate dealings with this. So this is really private sector housing. Our social housing is dealt with. They do have a fund and they do deal with disability grants, but it's dealt with by NPH separately. The communication thing, yes, the main agencies in the town are all aware of what we do, and would obviously be directing people to us when they come before them. The team themselves are quite willing to help with applications. I think that's mentioned in the report too.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. Anybody, any other comments or queries at all on this report? No? Okay, that's good. A great piece of work. Thank you very much. Chris is with us, and thank you for all your work on this, Chris. Was there anything further you wanted to add to it by chance, or you're happy we've pretty much covered it?
Leader, thank you. Just very briefly, thank you to Councillor Smith for her comments. Just to pick up a couple of issues there, we do have a member of the team in housing who works very closely with the General Hospital, dealing with hospital discharges and supporting that process through. So there are already key links there to help that one, just to clear you on that comment. And the reason behind the 15% value of grant coming back to the council from the capital fund, not from the applicant, is to make sure we have that full process in place. That it's a discretionary process where my team go out and support the applicant in there, filling the application form in. We use council procurement to procure the tenders. We supervise the works to make sure they're delivered to a high standard, to avoid risk of individuals being subject to scams or any other activity. That's clearly a discretionary activity of the council, and it's important therefore that we do put a charge for that as a private contractor would, which is what I'm mirroring there in the 15%, but to make sure we can really, where we need to, I guess proverbially hold someone's hand, take them through the process to ensure that their properties are absolutely fit for long-term occupation by them rather than having to move. And just to clarify a point that Councillor Hibbert made, he's absolutely right that MPH have their own fund, but we do cover all other social rented as well as owner occupied and private rented. So a lot of the housing associations, non-MPH, do come to us for our funding as well. That was it, Leader. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Those are helpful points to clarify. Thank you very much indeed. Don't see any further hands. I think everybody's probably had their say. In which case, if I may, I'll just direct your attention back to the recommendations, which are always, as always, are at section 2. Can I just ask you to confirm your agreement, please, to the recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Takes us on to item 9, which is Guildhall roof replacement, which is with Tim. Tim, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Stone very helpfully provided a list of items that she was going to want to deal with this evening, and item 9 was one of them. But I couldn't quite make head nor tail of the request, which seems to have been a typo, I think, because it wanted to know at great length about our policy, outcomes, impact, you name it. So I think that must refer to a later item, because there's nothing that exciting about a roof repair. This and the following item are about making sure that the Guildhall is in good order for the future. The roof on the older part of the building is a number of different roofs, and they're leaking in various parts, causing significant damage to the historic fabric of the building. And this report sets up the mechanism for making sure that those are all repaired in short order, and also providing improvements for the future so that access to the roofs is improved for future repairs and maintenance. So not only is it putting right the past, it's also putting things in much better shape for the future. The recommendations are set out at 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. 2.3, I hope we don't need to take advantage of the appointment of a legal advisor of specialist construction law. I think we ought to be able to get a roof done without lawyers helping us on the way, unless they want to mount a ladder. But there it is. We have the funds in the capital programme, and those are the recommendations, Leader. Happy to answer any questions, but I wouldn't have thought there'd be any.
It's pretty straightforward, really, Tim, isn't it? It's pretty straightforward, I think. Yeah, and we know there's been a huge amount of work done. Careful procurement happens with all these things, so grateful to everybody involved. Is it, incidentally, Councillor Stone, is it another item? Is it a different number?
No, sorry, I was referring to item 11.
11, okay.
Yeah,
right, okay. Yeah, no, don't worry at all. In which
Kept me
case,
on my toes, Leader.
well done. I don't see any other hands for comments. Is there any comments or questions on this at all? It's a pretty straightforward job that needs doing, I think, isn't it? In which case, I'll just draw your attention to the recommendations, which Tim's highlighted in section 2. Can you just confirm your agreement to them, please?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you very much. Similarly with the next one, which again is with Tim. No speakers again on this one, Tim. Over to you.
Well, there's no point in having a dry building if you don't also keep the people warm. The boilers have been struggling for many a long year, and this is grasping the nettle and doing necessary boiler replacements, also dealing with issues of location and radiators and so on, so that we have a proper functioning and also energy saving system for the future. And the recommendations are there at 2.1 and 2.2. Happy to answer any questions that there may be, Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Any questions at all? We've all had a good read of the report, I think. We can see that a huge amount of work has gone into this to look at the various different options and so on.
But just one thing I didn't mention on the previous item is the fact that we have Stimson, Walton and Bond, the architects, overlooking the building in general, obviously with the roof repairs and so on. I mean, nobody locally knows the building better than they do. And so we feel very comfortable in their hands to make sure that it's all dealt with in good order.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely right, Tim. So I don't see any hands to ask further questions or comments. Are we all done on that one? In which case, if I may, again, direct your attention back to the recommendations. Can I just ask you to confirm your agreement, please?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much. Now that takes us on to item 11. This one is with Anna. Review of the Public Spaces Protection Order. We've also got Councillor Stone down to speak, and she might remind us again, if we haven't seen it, of some of the points that she was keen to raise on this one. So let's start by going over to you, Anna, just to summarise the key points of this, please.
Thank you, Chair. So basically, it's a review of the public spaces protection order that we put into place in 2017. We've gone out for a big public consultation between the 17th of December 2019 and the 10th of March 2020. In front of you, you will see all of the questions that went out to the public, the percentage of the responses, and then if you look through the items, you'll be able to see highlighted the recommendations that have been put forward now to form the new public spaces protection order. To add to this as well, we're also looking at an enforcement and operational plan, which will actually be able to increase the enforcement that we are able to do, and this will be part of the community safety partnership. So we'll be looking at how we can further use our wardens and other enforcement agencies alongside the police. So happy to take any questions on it. I believe Councillor Stone, you've got some questions for me, which I have had written. So do you want to speak first and then I'll answer them?
Yes, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
I'm really curious about the impact of these orders, and it's one of those scenarios, isn't it? Because we don't know what would be happening if we hadn't got them. Do you know what I mean? So it's very hard to measure the impact, isn't it? And so, you know, common sense would say it's an important thing to do so that we've got a standard of behaviour that we expect, and we've got the enforcement measures in place to actually make sure that people take it seriously. So, but there are a number of questions about it, aren't there? From my point of view, I think the wardens and the park rangers are the people who combine community engagement with education, with enforcement. So I really like the role they play in enforcing these policies. I think it has a bigger impact. I don't think we've got the capacity to do the job as well as it needs to be done, I have to say. And I'm also concerned about structural issues. So I think at this particular time, it's really, really important to look at spitting in the street, because we know that COVID is a danger to everybody and it's carried like that. So I think education around spitting is really, really important. And one of the issues that we've all noticed, I noticed it going past my window just now, people are cycling much more than they were, but which is a delight. But the roads are not safe. And so my foster children, please don't get them arrested. When they go out on their bikes, if I'm not behind them, if I'm not with them, go on the path, because they don't feel safe on the roads. And that, you know, they live with me. They've got helmets, they've had training, they've had everything that they need to make them feel safe on the roads, and they don't. So there are structural issues that we need to take on board as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Anna, did you want to comment on any of those points?
Yeah, certainly. We'll go in reverse order, if that's okay. So starting with your last point, I completely sympathise with you. We know that we are not set up properly to handle cyclists. We're encouraging the active to work agenda. As you know, the County Council has been successful with the Chance 1 money. We're hoping to get the Chance 2. I'm hoping that this is actually going to help people a lot more in the future. We know that more people want to be out on their bikes, travelling to work. The whole green agenda is what we're promoting and pushing forward to. We couldn't actually include the cycling on pavements in the public spaces protection order because it's actually a power of the police at the moment and we can't duplicate the powers. So that's not included in there. If we go to the spitting item, so 3.2, spitting is actually in there. And again, completely agree with you. Maybe we can do some more education. We could get some Facebook and Twitter posts that can go out, just a little bit word of warning. I've personally been researching some really kind of different COVID messages. If anyone looks at my Facebook, you might have seen one about some knickers and washing and how it refers to using a face mask, which is quite quirky and will attract younger people to be able to be engaged. So I'll definitely look at that. With regards to the structure and stuff as well, yes, our wardens and rangers do an absolutely phenomenal job. They're a huge part of the council and a massive asset to what we have to offer. And again, the community engagement, and also that enforcement side, but it's all about the education. So it's about letting people know about what they can and can't do before they are actually fined or imposed with a fine. And so agree with that. As I said as well, we are looking at the enforcement and operational plan, which is a piece of work that I've been hoping we could have done for a long, long time. We're now in the position to be able to get this done. And as I said, it will get shaped over the next few months. And then I'll probably be able to share that with you, hopefully, next full council.
Thank you, Anna. Any other comments or questions on this? Phil, you want to comment?
Thank you, Chair. I hear what Danielle says about cycling, and I think there is a common sense aspect to cycling enforcement, and we need a safe environment for cycling. One of the things that annoys me is that the county council have a map of cycleways around the town. It clearly shows on that map the need for further development of cycleways, yet it's not pursuing those. Similarly, the maintenance of cycleways. For example, one that goes through Great Houghton, which is part of the National Cycle Network, you know, to actually get the, you know, you take your hands in your life in your hands trying to cycle through the trees that are encroaching onto the cycle track. And to get that cleared, it took me about a year to get the county council to properly maintain it. We need to be able to maintain what we've got, but we do need better and better cycling facilities. And there are areas that still want constructing, and I think that should be seriously looked at. But then again, cycling is a problem. Living where I live, you know, regular comments from my neighbours, and when I go into Monks Park Club and places like that, the number of people who talk to me about cycling on the pavement, particularly Kingsley Park Terrace, Wellingborough Road, etc. And even as you know, I was in Abington Street the other day, and there was, you know, young people, not kids. I mean, kids are not so bad, but you know, sort of people in their early 20s, late teens, absolutely flying up and down Abington Street, you know, at a massive speed, which is really dangerous. And they do need to be addressed. And I'm really disappointed that we can't take the initiative to enforce cycling on the footpath while exercising common sense. Because, you know, the police, you know, it's a police power and they can do it. But the police aren't going to do it. You know, we've all got our views on the police, but and what their priorities are, but they're not going to enforce cycling on the pavement because it's not a priority for them. And quite rightly so, probably, I don't know. But you talk to people, as I say, my neighbours, people I see when I go into Monks Park Club, it is an issue for them, particularly elderly people. So I was wondering if we could make inquiries, perhaps ask our legal department to do this. I mean, parking enforcement was a responsibility of the police, and they had their own wardens. I think we actually had one in Northampton, but it was deregulated, and the borough applied to take on that responsibility, and we did until it went back to the county, and it still rests with the county. Is there a way that we can take enforcement and apply for it to be dealt with authority, as parking was deregulated with our MPs? If we can't, but if we can, let's go for deregulation. Let's take on the enforcement responsibility. If not, let's see what we can do through our MPs. But I'm happy to support the paper, Chair. It's really good.
Okay, thank you, Phil. There are serious issues here and there with cycling, aren't there? A number of areas where it has become a real hazard. And this is not to discourage cycling, but to deal with it inappropriately at the times needed in specific areas. The general encouragement of cycling and active travel with walking is an important one. And we're all signed up to that. So it feels like we're behind what we're doing here, but we feel we've got a little bit more work to do maybe on that subject of cycling before we've completely concluded the subject, doesn't it? Anna, did you want to comment at all on that, or is that has that reached a point?
Yeah,
as
just
far as
come
we
back in
can?
slightly. So we have already been working with legal about the delegation of powers to cycling on pavements, and that's going to start to form the enforcement and operational plan that I've mentioned as well. So it's definitely top of the agenda, completely simplifies. My mum's registered blind and has a guide dog. Unfortunately, her main walking route is along the Kettering Road, and nearly every day she's nearly knocked over. People ring the bell and expect a blind lady to move out of the way, which I think is absolutely disgusting. So yeah, I completely agree with everything you've just said.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. Any further comments or questions that anybody wants to raise on this particular item? Stephen?
I just wanted to say how pleased I was that the decision on begging has been deferred rather than dealt with, because I remain I understand the position on homelessness, but I remain concerned about what you might call career beggars who turn up at town on when we hold events like street fairs and what have you, because they know it's highly productive, and we have a very generous number of people in Northampton, and that's an area that I think we should still be acting on. But I'm happy to await, see how we deal with the homelessness thing first.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much. I think that seems like the last of our questions or comments. That being the case, direct your attention to the recommendations at section 2. Can you just confirm your agreement to the recommendations, please?
Agreed.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Takes us on to our last report, which is item 12. This is Public Spaces Protection Order, but specifically in relation to the PSPO for the area known as Marble Arch. Again, Anna, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so again, this is a renewal of a public spaces protection order from Marble Arch, which has been highly beneficial and has really helped in terms of helping the police tackle antisocial behaviour in that area, and also to our wardens. It's cleaned up a lot of fly tipping issues that we had in that area. So if you just draw yourself to the recommendations, please, at 2.1, 2.2, if you could go ahead with, if you were happy to accept that, that would be great.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, all sorts of problems used to exist in that part of town. The PSPO does seem to have done a good job of eliminating some of the terrible things that were happening up there, and seems to have been universally supported. I've not heard any negatives against it since, so it does just seem a straightforward thing to renew it. Does anybody have any comments at all? Cabinet members want to chip in with comments at all? Again, it's something that we've discussed this thoroughly before this evening, haven't we? Yeah, okay. In which case, as Anna says, the recommendations, as always, at item 2, section 2. Can you just confirm your agreement to the recommendations, please?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. That was our last item. So in which case, at that point, we'll conclude the meeting and thank everybody for their attendance this evening. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair.